Hey guys, this is What If Subaru Was Iron Man Part 3. Let's dive right into it. So, I last left off after Subaru would have had his cheeks absolutely obliterated.
You're gay! He's gay!
By a masked assailant in the estate. With that being said, Subaru would have restarted. Now, the whole talk about, Ram, Amelia in the room after Subaru would have had his return by death moment, that wouldn't happen. That would be retconned. So Subaru would just wake up in an empty room. The same thing would have happened in original. Subaru would have woken up. He would have pretty much walked around. The same thing would have happened his last go about, basically. He would have woken up. He would have walked around. Would have still met up with Beatrice. Beatrice would have still figured out or found out that he was somewhat immune to certain curses and also mana manipulation. And also, why he had like an arc reactor in his chest, Subaru giving him a good rundown, or giving her a good rundown of what it did for him and how it kept him alive. Subaru would still tell that information to Amelia, same thing like last time, but him actually stopping when he was telling her this information, asking, "You know a lot about me, but I barely know about you. Where are you from? Who are you? And what's going on with the whole elf thing?" As Amelia is kind of confused, saying, "What do you mean?" As Subaru says, "I don't understand why you're so ashamed of being an elf." As she would have said, "Well, you don't really understand, don't you? You come from a faraway land, don't you?" Him saying, "Yeah, I do." As I have met, supernaturals, elf-like creatures, and her saying, "Well, here, I guess I'd like to visit where you came from if they don't even think elves are that bad, but where I come from, here in Lagunica, elves are seen differently." But her stopping midway, not trying to get depressing, as she would have basically answered Subaru's question from earlier, and she would say that she's from a far off land and she lived in the magical forest. Basically giving him kind of the bare minimum of her past, not really giving him any good information about herself. But Subaru would just dismiss this, asking where his armor was, him still knowing where it was, but not wanting to change the story too much, considering that if he just knew off right where his armor was, it would kind of cause, I guess you could say, suspicion on both sides. So Subaru would be escorted to the armory/garage area, as Subaru would look over his armor, basically trying to figure out what he can salvage from it, knowing the bare minimum of what he can salvage from it, going deeper and deeper in it, seeing that he can salvage a lot of the internal wiring to try to rebuild a new suit, just like the ideas he had with Rhodey his last go about. So Subaru would have asked Amelia if they can go to the village later today, as if they have some sort of blacksmith or some sort of repair shop around here. Her saying, "Well, we have a blacksmith, but I don't think he can help you." Subaru saying, "I'm pretty sure he might be able to help. Help greatly, actually." As what would happen is Subaru still meets up with Roswell. He still does ask to be a butler, and later that day, after he does some of his butler work and also gets his suit tailored to him and his butler attire made, Subaru still goes to the village to basically, bring his scraps of his suit with him, as he would have actually still had the whole conversation with Rhodey a lot earlier on in this continuity, meeting Rhodey earlier and actually asking him about the whole blueprints and pretty much making a new Iron Man suit, showing him the scraps of his Iron Man suit, him being surprised and actually in shock, saying, this is awesome, this is amazing," as he would have been even more impressed by the suit itself besides just having the blueprints Subaru would have shown him in last time. So what would happen is they would start immediately on programming and pretty much making the suit of armor. The night would have ran by quickly, as it would have been morning time. Subaru, realizing that he was pretty much late, as he would have been running right back to the estate, going straight to his duties as a butler, as he would have been working and breaking his back day in and day out, but him being used to pulling all-nighters, considering that he is a Stark and he has been working day in and day out for multiple different Iron Man suits in the past. So Subaru would just straight up drink a lot of water and just keep his mind sharp for the upcoming days. With that being said, Subaru would have started his voyage. More or less, he would have gone day in and day out. The last 3 days, him going back and forth to the village and back to the estate again and again and again, working on the armor alongside Rhodey, and their friendship becoming stronger and even better with their shared intellects. As Rhodey was very much a prodigy, especially for his time, Rhodey was able to pick up very quickly on Tony's teachings and also about what he wanted to do with the armor to add magic enchantments and other things such as that. Subaru learned a lot more about magic enchantments and the capabilities of magic on weapons and items from Rhodey and his natural and his pretty much normal understanding of magic because he's from this world. So Subaru would have learned a great amount of technology and actually information from Rhodey. Rhodey and him becoming closer friends than even he would even imagine. Rhodey reminding Subaru a lot of his uncle Brody. With that being said, we get switched the following couple days as Subaru would have been chilling and relaxing. With that being said, Rim would be very suspicious of him, but most of the time when he did go over to Rhodey's place, it's simple, she would have been watching from afar, spying on him pretty much alongside Ram. As they would spy on him then and there, making sure he wasn't doing anything crazy, because more or less, Roswell would be kind of suspicious of Subaru, but with Subaru's work and him also talking to Roswell in the shower and pause, but that sounds so bad. Basically, the bathhouse or the bath area. Roswell would still talk to Subaru and more or less still tell him yada yada, this and there, that and that. More or less, Subaru getting on Roswell's good side, using his smarts to try to get on Roswell's level and more or less try to persuade him that he is a good person and he could be great help to the Amelia party and then and there. Actually offering to help Amelia get the throne if Roswell gave him permission to go into the library, for information at least, to make a new suit of armor. Subaru's armor was going swimmingly at this point, but he wanted to add different aspects and actually loved the idea of enchanted weapons. One thing is cool, an enchanted armor is awesome, but Subaru doesn't have the technology to recreate his firearms or his, well, different levels of technology or weaponry. Only thing he can really recreate is his, well, repulsor blast. But besides that, Subaru would basically just have repulsor blast and superhuman strength and durability in his suit. So Subaru had to figure out a different way to make the suit original and also uncanny. So Roswell would agree to this, as Subaru would have smiled saying thank you so much kindly. As he would have walked out, bumping into Ram saying, "Put that thing away." As Subaru would have said, "Oh, sorry, no, it's a little bit of a grill, more or less. Her saying, don't gas yourself up. It's decent."
She want me.
Subaru chuckles as she has a straight face. She is not laughing. She tells him to shut up and get dressed. As Subaru says, yeah. Excuse me. Okay, that was poor taste in words. Okay, as Subaru would have just walked past her, saying have a good night, walking away. Subaru getting dressed and getting back to work the next day. That being said, the next following day, the last day, Subaru would have actually had a plan going on the whole time. Him getting closer and closer to the townsfolk and the village people there, working alongside Rhodey, actually having time with Rhodey near the end of the day to pretty much have radio calisthenics with the village multiple times, learning more about the kids and pretty much their ambitions and their futures, actually becoming friends with some of the townsfolk people as well besides just Rhodey. So Subaru was making a pretty good impact on the lives of the village people and also the lives of people at the estate. Subaru wouldn't be at the estate that much near nighttime because near the afternoon to nighttime, Subaru would just be at the village. As Subaru, the last day, was working as he would eventually be still doing a bunch of other things on top of working with Rhodey with the armor, such as learning how to read and write in Lagunica's or in this new world's language with the help of Rim actually. Him learning a lot more about this world and actually becoming friends with Rim with his more charismatic and outgoing personality, actually being able to talk to Rim a lot more. With that being said, with Subaru's more longer talks and conversations and actually coming across, well, pretty much Beatrice in the estate because he would have been able to have access to the library and the books there, he would have been talking to Beatrice then and there after he would have finished another book about magic items and pretty much enchanted weaponry, he would have asked Beatrice about curses and also about the Witch of Calamity because he would have read about it in a book about a weapon that can kill a witch. As Subaru would have been told about witches and stuff like that, as Beatrice would actually drop the bomb saying that you smell kind of like a witch. As Subaru would be kind of confused by this. He would have still asked Ren this question, actually asking her this as they were right in the middle of their, well, reading and writing lessons. Her saying, what? As she would be kind of, well, defensive, but Subaru saying that he doesn't know why he smells like a witch or the Witch of Calamity. That's what at least Beatrice told me. But I think I was cursed as a kid. As Subaru would tell that to her, trying to get the whole, pretty much, I guess you could say, suspicion off of him. Because if he smelled like a witch, and if anybody else could pick that up, and the witch was supposedly this horrible person and this horrible being, it kind of makes sense that some people would want him dead. So he kind of put that hand in hand with the person that killed him his first night here. So with that being said, Subaru would have been able to kind of get on Rem's good side, causing Rem not to want to kill him on the, well, cliff side in the original canon. So that loop, that rewind, would have never happened. So Rem and Subaru's relationship would have actually became a lot more stronger, Subaru clearing up that whole suspicion about the curse and everything like that with Rem. That also being said, Subaru would still become kind of acquaintances with Ram, telling her about, well, the story of the red and blue ogre. As Ram would have said it was a stupid story, but Subaru saying that it was kind of wholesome because one gave up itself for another to have a better life, to have what they wanted. But her saying that they're both stupid because why would you want to lose everything just for someone to gain the affection of a people that hate them? But Subaru is saying that it's not about that. It's about giving up what you have for someone else. Doing the right thing, even if it's bad for you. But her saying that it was stupid and heroes don't make it out alive in this town or in this world. As she runs, or not runs, but basically walks out the room, telling Subaru not to tell that story to Rim. As Subaru would understand this and not say anything. Not knowing why, but wanting to learn more about that in the future. With that being said, a lot of the pretty much rewinds and return by death loops that Subaru would have been avoided simply by Subaru using his smarts and his mental capacity to pretty much become friends and gain, well, ties to these people's emotions and become kind of almost friends with these people. So with that being said, Subaru would also talk to Amelia the same way, actually asking her out on a date to the village on, well, the 4th day. Him basically telling her that, let's go on a date. As she would have said, what's a date? Him explaining it to her, as she would have said, isn't that what you did with Rim? As Subaru would have said, no, I just went to the village with Rim to pick up some supplies from, the village, and also work with Rhodey. As would happen, they would go back and forth, but they get switched to the next day. Subaru would have asked her on a date the next following day, so Subaru had the 4th day to himself. With everything going correctly, him having access to the library and gaining a lot more information about this world's magic and the capabilities of magic, alongside the information he got from Rhodey, and also being almost done with the armor, he was straight up at the peak right now. He was using the best information and the best route of using his charismatic personality and his smarts to get farthest he possibly could. With that being said, Subaru would have been able to get way farther than original Subaru using his stark personality, charismatic potential, and more or less using, well, mental capacity to get past all the problems that would have been in Subaru's way to begin with. But the last day, Subaru would have gone to the village for, well, supplies with Ram and Rem. Subaru was still talking to the kids and actually seeing the kids find a puppy. Subaru trying to pet the puppy, but it biting him. Subaru saying, "Jeez, this is a mean puppy." As they would have just said, "You shouldn't have touched her so much. That's what you get for touching her so much." Subaru just chuckling and saying, "Yeah, but you kids be okay, alright?" As he says goodbye to everybody and pretty much helps the group, or the two girls, pretty much bring up the supplies back to the estate. As Rem and Subaru would have still had the conversation about demonic inspiration, as their friendship would become more solidified. After that would have taken part, they get back to the estate, seeing off Roswell, as Roswell would have been, well, leaving for the estate to handle some business, saying that he has to handle some business in the capital. I'll be back in times due, but keep the estate in working order for me, especially you, Subaru. I have great promise in you. As he flies off, and Subaru's impressed by this, but says it's pretty cool. As he pretty much brings in all the supplies, and later that night, he does still check with Beatrice to see if he's cursed or not. He would have still done the same thing he did in the original, doing calisthenics and pretty much working out and more or less trying to figure out if the shaman was in the village. Him being in the village the last like 4 days, he would have not really seen anybody that was suspicious, but him not being too sure, so he would still do radio calisthenics one last time before he went back to the village before they left with the, well, supplies. With that being said, Subaru would have had to been checked by, well, Beatrice. Beatrice saying that you have a curse there. Subaru looking at his hand, realizing it's the bite mark from the puppy. Subaru would have instantly ran out of the room, telling Beatrice that thank you for everything you've done, as he runs down the hallways about to run out to the village to try to get his armor and figure out what's going on with the kids because they were playing with that puppy and it cursed him, a curse that would have killed him if it wasn't for his arc reactor or, well, for Beatrice stepping in. So that being said, Subaru was about to run out of the estate, but being, well, stopped by Rim. Rim asking him what's going on, as Rim would have also walked down the hallways, saying what's going on as well. I've heard a lot of commotion, I heard you running down the hallways. Subaru telling them a good rundown of what's going on. He was cursed, the kids were cursed, or might have been cursed by the same thing that cursed him, and he wants to go there to figure out what's going on and save the kids if they are in any danger. As, well, they're like, okay, we can't leave the estate, Roswell Pitt's in charge. We can't leave the estate, and we can't leave Amelia by herself. As Subaru said, fine, I'll go myself. I'll go by myself. He runs off being stopped by Rim. Rim actually volunteering to go alongside him to help him in his endeavor. As Ram and Amelia would have stepped back and basically would have been left behind. Amelia still praying over Subaru and telling him to be okay. And I probably can't stop you, can I? Him saying no, you can't. I'm pretty much dead set on saving those kids. So the group sets out, or the duo sets out. Them getting to the village and finding a townsfolk member that was looking away or looking around for the kids. Subaru's walking around as he goes near the workshop he's been at for the last couple days, working on the armor, barging in as Rhodey would have been tweaking on the armor, as he would have asked him what's going on, as Subaru would have pretty much taken a duffel bag he took before he left the estate, saying that he had to work on a suit of armor and had to activate and pretty much start this weapon, as it was some sort of ancient weapon he was working on inside of the estate with the help of Beatrice's technology, or not technology, but more or less with the help of Beatrice's and the library's information, and also the help of Rhodey as well. Rhodey saying this was a very experimental type of enchanted object he was working with and he made, but I don't think it's anywhere near testing yet. This suit is a prototype and it's almost finished, but that's like a whole week from now, a whole month maybe, as Subaru says that he has no time and they need to go out in the village, and they have to go out now. Those kids could be in danger. As Subaru gets interrupted when Ram walks into the estate, or as Rim walks into the workshop, saying that the kids probably went out in the village and went into the forest. The crystal, the barrier, one of the crystals are broken down. Just a small enough crack for the kids to get out and be lured away from some sort of mob beast. Subaru tells Rhodey that they need to start it now and start Project Iron. As Subaru opens up a crate and pretty much pulls off a tarp off of a suit of armor, pretty much booting it up, as we hear Jarvis's voice yet again. The armor activating and Subaru donning the armor. Rhodey would have told him that it was only a few things the armor could possibly do, but it was all in theory because the suit was the first of its kind, besides his original concepts and his blueprints and the scraps they took from the original suit of armor. As Subaru would have said, thank you so much, Rhodey, And also, I have a gift for you later I've been working on. As Rody would have been surprised and actually interested in this idea. As Subaru would have waltzed off, basically escorting Rim right near the edge of the village, right where the kids would have been able to get out of the village through the break in the barrier, then following deeper into the forest as the night passes. Subaru going through his spectics and Jarvis giving him a rundown of what the suit can possibly do right now. Its base form basically gave him a really good buff when it came to durability and superhuman enhanced strength with the armor. It also gave him, well, a new type of skill. With Super working on a secret weapon to go alongside the armor, it was something of a trump card and something he can only pull out once this night because, well, his power reserves were very last minute and very scrambled, considering the armor wasn't even finished. Subaru and Rim walk through the forest deeper and deeper and deeper, but hearing a scream. As Subaru and Rim ran deep into the forest, eventually coming across the three kids circled around, all unconscious. Rim would eventually and immediately get to healing the kids, and her basically telling Subaru to stay, but Subaru saying no, he's gonna go deeper into the forest because one of the girls here or one of the kids here that are supposed to be here aren't here. They're probably deeper in the forest, and that's probably who screamed. As Subaru tells Rim to take care of the kids, and he'll be back in no time. As Subaru runs to the forest, as this suit is mainly built for durability and, well, superhuman and pretty much feats. More or less, the suit doesn't have the full durability factors that the modern Iron Man suit has because it does have gaps. But the base suit does have a carbon fiber type of makeshift under armor, more or less kind of a mesh type of armor that medieval knights wore underneath their armor, but a lot more high tech and a lot more enhanced with magic enchantments that he experimented with alongside Rhodey, and also a couple other things such as him using real world technology and real world aspects he learned in engineering back home to pretty much make a under armor type of, well, texture or suit. Basically, pretty simple. He worked with a blacksmith and also a fabric maker in the town to make something like carbon fiber for, well, the suit's undergarments. But that being said, Super's durability was okay in terms of the suit. It could take a bullet blast. It could take a beating before it actually starts to break. But on top of that, the suit, its agility would have actually been a lot better than other suits because it had a lot more movement to do fluent and organic movements. So with that being said, Super would have been running and running, eventually getting deeper into the forest, coming near a clearing where he would have seen the purple-haired girl he would have been talking to the last following days. Him trying to wake her up as she would have been cold, knocked out, and cursed. Subaru picking her up, but hearing, well, growls around him. The forest would have became silent, chills would have gone up his spine. Super looking around and seeing multiple mobbies circle around him and this defenseless little girl. Subaru would have thought fast and would have chucked a huge blast of break towards multiple mobbies, taking them down and pushing them back. Having just enough energy to push off a few repulsor blasts then and there, and also pretty much keep his distance, trying to keep them away, but one of them sneaking up behind Subaru, as Subaru would have pimp slapped the snot out of it, sending it back into a nearby tree. Subaru being impressed by the strength, and actually the strength being on par with his modern suits, but the durability being kind of iffy. Subaru getting sideblitzed by another mob beast that would have gone for a nibble at him, but before he can get on him, we see that Rim would have shown up. Rim hitting the mob beast outside the forehead, telling Subaru we gotta go now, and we gotta get out of here now. As Subaru and Rim would have ran for it deeper into the forest, trying to get near the village, but mob beasts would have been on their tails every left, right, and turn around this, well, forest. The deeper and deeper they went and the farther and farther they ran, more mob beasts would have came out of nowhere trying to get a jump on them. Super using his repulsor beams to push him back, and Rim using her Morning Star to kick him back and pretty much splatter them like watermelons. As Super would have told Rim that we need to make a plan, and that she'll take the kid and he'll make a distraction so they can get out of here. As she would have said, no, that's stupid. And even if your armor was at full capacity, which I heard their whole conversation with Rhodey, it's not at full capacity. And at any time, that suit can fall apart. It's a prototype. It's not even meant to be out here in the field. As Subaru would have chuckled, saying, yeah, but I take risks all the time. I take risks every day. I've been taking risks since I was a kid. So you take her and get to the village. I'll cause a scene, I'll cause a distraction to give you enough time to get out of their way. As she would have said that's stupid and that's suicide, as out of nowhere, we see multiple mob beasts try to, well, jump on Rim. Rim not paying attention and having little to no reaction time, about to get mauled, but Subaru jumping in, taking the full bite force, and multiple of the bites and scratches and, well, pretty much claw marks being covered by the armor and plates and mesh material, keeping Subaru, well, safe, effectively keeping him, well, efficient. As Subaru never really, well, tested his mesh part of his armor, besides using other armory or other swords in the village against it, as he never used it or had it field tested against mob beast or other magical type of attacks. So that being said, Subaru would have been, well, kind of impressed and also happy, as Subaru would have shot multiple pulse reactor blasts, keeping them away, as Subaru would have told her to get out of here now, as she would have ran off with the girl, going deeper and deeper, eventually getting near the village and pretty much repairing the barrier, jumping into the village crate or in the village and saving the girl, as she would reunite the girl with her parents. As Subaru, well, we can switch back to Subaru's story, as Subaru would have been running for his ass, bro. Subaru would have been booking it, bro. He would start to run, as surprisingly, this suit of armor gave him a lot more speed in terms of just straight up running, because he didn't have the capability of flying in the suit just yet. It was a prototype after all. It was barely finished. So the most he can do is pretty much give him a pretty good, well, rundown of just straight up speed. He can move with this armor like it didn't even have armor on him. It was very fluent and very smooth motion. As Subaru would start to run and book it, eventually getting right near a cliffside, about to get mauled by a bunch of mobbies. Subaru looked over the cliffside, saying, might as well test it out, as Subaru would have jumped off the cliffside into a fury of trees, branches, and twigs, causing a few broken bones and ribs, but nothing too fatal for him not to be able to move or run. A few broken ribs in and there and some bruised arteries, but overall, Subaru would have been actually pretty okie dokie. Surprisingly, the suit being able to take a lot of damage, even though it was a prototype, as Subaru ran deeper and deeper into the forest, trying to do a big circle around back to the village, or maybe even getting back to the estate. Him running deeper and deeper into the forest, but just more and more mob beasts coming out of nowhere, like they were attracted to him, like they were beaconed towards him. With this being said, Subaru would have still figured out that the mob beasts were attracted to the witch's scent and also, well, the witch's power, because he had, well, obvious detective skills, or not detective skills, but more or less he put two and two together, considering that he had returned by death, and also he's seen, or not really seen the witch, but he's felt the witch's presence around his heart every time he tried to tell anybody about return by death. I didn't mention that in the narration, but more or less Subaru has tried to tell people that, including Amelia, first time he pretty much rewind and got killed here the first day, but more or less Super would have known that he couldn't tell anybody. That being said, Super would have started to run deeper and deeper, figuring out a good opening to get near the village, or either just circle back to the estate. As this is all happening, from afar, Super would be able to circle all the way back to the village, but before he can get to the village, him being stopped by a behemoth of a swarm of mob beasts. A whole pack of these mob monsters, about to get absolutely shish kebab, but Subaru hitting and activating his trump card. He knew he had no other choice, and, well, he was so far away from anything else, and he was so close to the village, and he couldn't get past this mob beast without activating his trump card, so he had to swallow his, well, pretty much plan, and went all out. Him grabbing the golden baton from the back of his armor that was concealed in multiple variations of mesh coating and armor, as Jarvis would have told him that the suit doesn't have enough energy to keep this up for long, but it is able to activate his trump card for at least 5 minutes, as Subaru would have chuckled saying, 5 minutes is all I need. As Subaru would have pressed the button, as most of the arc reactor energy in his chest would have been, well, transferred to this weapon, as he's been working on this for a few days now, using a lot of his free time to most of it all working on it even with Rhodey to, well, progress its, well, progress, and also its effectiveness, as he would have used the technology and also the information he got from the library to make something of a revolutionary object, a weapon that can turn into anything. Super pressing the button and causing it to transform into a sword. A Super would have swung it in the sky, causing a huge sound wave to be broken off, causing multiple of the mob beasts to be sent flying. As the sword had properties of sound wave manipulation, Super would have lunged straight towards the mob beast or the pack leader of the mob beast, slicing a huge attack towards the mob beast, causing a huge shockwave to be caused, as this would bring a lot of attention near the outskirts of the village, causing Rim to jump into action, running deeper and deeper towards the commotion, seeing multiple laser blasts and shockwaves being caused in the forest, causing even someone like Ram from the estate to notice, and also Amelia noticing through the window. The fight would have started to drag out as Super would have started to lunge, dodge, and weave and attack, being able to cut through multiple limbs of the mob beast, about to kill it, but out of nowhere, a second pack leader of the mob beast would have shown up, kicking Super dead in the chest, knocking him into a nearby tree, almost making him lose his weapon. But luckily, the weapon had a magnetic feature, so more or less, even if it was knocked out of Super's hand, it would instantly reconnect back to his, well, armor. Now, with this being said, the only flaw to this suit, or this pretty much armor function, basically being able to use this pretty much magical item he literally was able to make in a couple days. Like I said, Subaru is a freaking genius, but more or less, with this being said, the only real flaw, considering that he didn't have enough time with it, it is absolutely useless without the armor. To put it simple, when he activates it, this, like, all the weapons are straight up like tons of weight. I mean, you would have to be a superhuman just to lift it up. Like, the sword itself is around 500, 600 pounds. So, yeah, Subaru needs the armor to even use the weapon correctly. That's why it's powered by the arc reactor, and the arc reactor's power is juiced up through the current of the suit. With that being said, Subaru would have tried to dodge and weave, only having enough energy reserves to only do one weapon transformation, using his sword as his primary dodge and blade attack, using the big weight of the sword and flat side of the sword as a shield, and using the, well, sword, the part of the sword that makes it a sword, as he would have sliced it and kept it at bay, having to fight between two mob beasts that are the size of a freaking house. Subaru about to get snatched and pretty much hit on a t-shirt, but out of nowhere, Rim would have shown up, as Rim and Subaru would have hit back to back, as they would have fallen alongside each other, going deeper and deeper into a fury of attacks towards the mob beast. Most of the smaller mob beasts would have been scattered at this point, or all would have been killed by the two. With this being said, Super would have started to go up against these two mob beasts, as he would have been smacked around like a rag doll, but Rim jumping in, pretty much clocking one of the mob beasts, the ones that Subaru injured earlier, and cut off the paw on, as Subaru would have saw her go demon mode. The fight would have gone way more intense than usual, as the fight would have gotten more dangerous, more intense, and more bloody. Subaru's armor barely being able to keep up, as he was soon about to lose the capabilities in his armor, or more or less his sword transformation, as he would start to hit harder and harder, but eventually the sword would disappear and the baton technology would reappear back into the arsenal, or pretty much the equipment in his armor. So basically what I'm saying, like when the armor runs out of power, or when the magical weapon, the transformation weapon power, runs out, it just materializes back inside the armor, or just magnetizes back inside the armor. So more or less, Subaru is, well, armless right now. as he has to fight back with hands, as he would have used some of his boxing skills he learned back in the, well, his world, as he would have started to throw some hands, as it wouldn't really be effective. Like, boxing a giant dog isn't something for the weak, especially even if you have superhuman strength and a suit of armor, it ain't gonna be effective. Subaru starts to get smacked around, as Subaru's pretty much dead weight now and just a chew toy for this mob beast, as Rim would have let go. Her horn starting to show, and us being shown who Rim really was, what she really was. As Rim would have started to lay waste to these mob beasts and would have eventually been able to kill both of them. But her losing her mind and about to go off on Subaru, as Subaru would have been saved last minute by Ram, as Ram would have saw the commotion and would have grabbed Subaru, pulling him out the way before he can get smacked down like a watermelon. As Subaru would have told Ram or asked Ram what was going on, as Ram would have given him a backstory and pretty much a rundown about the two sisters as they were running away from Rim, as Rim would have been chasing them down through the forest. Eventually sunrise was coming, as it would be sunset, as they would eventually come past the same cliffside that would have been around the estate. The same cliffside Subaru, in original canon, would have sacrificed himself for the greater good. That being said, Subaru would have thought about an idea, a theory, he could say. As Subaru would have said that all he had to do, right, as he would have asked Rim, or Ram, as all I had to do was hit her horn, right, to snap her back into her good sense, right? As, well, Ram would have said pretty much. Subaru saying bet, as he would have grabbed Rim, or grabbed Ram, and chucked her towards Rim.
I'm trying to be cool, but goddamn.
Rim seeing this, as it would have flittered or pretty much messed with her type of, I guess you could say, bloodlust, but she was about to go swing for swing and absolutely kebab her sister with her Morning Star. But through those split seconds, Subaru gaining up enough energy, just enough before his suit shuts down, and the pressurized super strength in the suit going out, Subaru would have let off a reactor blast, shooting Rim right in the horn, causing her to get knocked out and causing her to get back into her senses. As Ram would have still been mad at Subaru for doing this, but would have congratulated him because it was a pretty smart move. With that being said, the next couple of days would have followed, as Subaru would have been able to, pretty much go back to the village, check up on the kids, the village seeing him as a hero, and also him going by the workshop and telling Rhodey he gave him an idea. As Rhodey would have said, so what is it? As Subaru would have given him schematics of an arc reactor, saying and telling Rhodey that I think, the armor came out amazing. And I know when we were talking, you had a really big interest in, the firearms I was talking about. Those things I said that were from my home village, my home kingdom. Him saying, yeah. As Subaru would have chuckled saying, well, I might want to teach you how to make them, and also how to make an armor of your own. As I will leave out here, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys like and subscribe, and as always, guys, have a blessed day. Deuces.